The galaxy was a big place, really big, so big that most species never even tried to explore all of it. They would find their little corner of space and stay there, happy to trade with their neighbors and avoid trouble. The Galactic Council knew this pattern well. They had seen it happen thousands of times before. A new species would discover faster than light travel. They would send out a few ships to explore nearby stars. Then they would meet the big powers of the galaxy and realize how small they really were. After that, they would go back home and never bother anyone again. The Council called these groups silent species. They were not important. They were just another entry in the long list of civilizations that existed but did not matter. 3 great powers ruled most of the galaxy. The Zephyrian Empire was the oldest. They had been around for so long that some of their cities were built on planets that had died and been reborn. The Keth Collective was all about technology. They turned entire star systems into giant computers. The Vraxi hegemony loved war. They had the biggest ships and the strongest weapons. These 3 powers divided up the galaxy between them. Sometimes they fought each other. Sometimes they worked together. But they always agreed on one thing. New species were not worth their time. When humans first showed up, everything seemed normal. Earth had finally built ships that could travel faster than light. The first human vessels were small and crude. They looked like someone had stuck an engine onto a metal box and hoped for the best. The crew seemed nervous about everything they saw. The humans sent polite messages to everyone they met. They asked permission before landing on planets. They were amazed by the size of alien cities. They acted exactly like every other silent species the galaxy had ever seen. Dr. Vexani was the Zephyrian scientist who wrote the first report about humans. She studied them for 3 months and came to the obvious conclusion. Humans were typical silent species material. They were not very advanced. They seemed scared of the bigger powers. They would probably go home soon and never be heard from again. The report was filed away with thousands of others just like it. No one bothered to read it except for a few junior clerks who had to update the database. Earth got a number. Species classification 7,832,445. Silent species. Expected withdrawal date 18 months. The humans built a few small research stations near their home system. This was normal too. Silent species always wanted to study space for a while before they gave up and went home. The stations were tiny compared to the massive structures that real space civilizations built. They had maybe a few hundred people each. But something was different about these human research stations, though no one noticed at first. They were asking a lot of questions. Not the usual questions that silent species asked, like, how do we trade for fuel? Or which areas should we avoid? The humans wanted to know about jump point calculations. They asked about stellar drift patterns. They wanted maps of hyperspace currents. They asked which star systems had the best asteroid belts for mining. They wanted to know about the territorial boundaries between the major powers and how those boundaries were enforced. Most species answered these questions without thinking about it. After all, what could a silent species do with that information? It was like giving a map of the ocean to someone who was afraid of deep water. The humans were also buying strange things. Not luxury goods or advanced technology like most new species wanted. They bought industrial equipment. Mining gear, raw materials, computer cores, communication arrays, lots and lots of communication arrays. When asked what they needed all this equipment for, the humans always gave the same answer: research purposes. A few Keith Collective traders noticed that humans were buying more industrial equipment than most major colonies used in a year. But the humans paid in cash and never caused trouble, so no one complained. The Vraxi military spotted human ships in sectors that were pretty far from Earth, but the ships were small and unarmed, so the Vraxi ignored them. Silent species were allowed to explore as long as they did not get in the way. Some Zephyrian diplomats noted that human research stations seemed to be getting bigger. But since the humans were still polite and non-threatening, this was not considered important enough to investigate. The truth was that no one was really watching the humans. Why would they? The galaxy had more important things to worry about. The Vraxi and Keth were having border disputes. The Zephyrians were dealing with a rebellion in one of their outer sectors. A few dozen small powers were fighting over mining rights in the Andromeda Arm. Earth was just another silent species doing silent species things. They would run out of money or get scared of the big galaxy and go home. It always happened eventually. What nobody realized was that humans had never planned to go home. While the galaxy was busy with its own problems, humans were busy too. Those research stations were not just for research. They were also manufacturing centers. The exploration ships were not just exploring. They were surveying for resources and mapping strategic positions. The industrial equipment that humans bought was not sitting in warehouses. It was being used around the clock to build more equipment. The communication arrays were linking together into a network that covered dozens of star systems. Every time a human ship left Earth, it came back with a full cargo hold. But it was not cargo that anyone expected. Raw metals, rare elements, industrial blueprints, star charts, and sometimes other humans who had decided that life in space was better than life on Earth. The human research stations started building their own ships, small ones at first, then bigger ones. The humans said these ships were for expanding our research capabilities. No one asked why research ships needed such thick armor plating. Human mining operations spread to more and more asteroid belts. The humans always filed the proper paperwork and paid the required fees. They were model citizens of the galaxy. They just happened to be mining a lot more resources than any silent species had ever needed before. 18 months after first contact, something strange happened. The humans did not pack up and go home. Instead, they announced that they were establishing permanent colonies in 12 star systems. They also mentioned that they were upgrading their research stations to full-scale industrial centers. This was not normal silent species behavior. But the galaxy was still not paying attention. The Vraxi were fighting a war with some rebels. The Keth were building a new supercomputer. The Zephyrians were having an election that had lasted for 6 months already. A few minor officials sent polite letters asking humans to explain their activities. The humans sent polite letters back explaining that they were expanding their peaceful research operations and looked forward to continued cooperation with all galactic neighbors. Everything seemed fine. The humans were still using polite language. They were still following galactic law. They were still a silent species, just one that was taking a little longer than usual to realize they should go home. But in the outer rim, where few people paid attention to anything, human ships were moving with purpose. They were not exploring anymore. They were building, and what they were building was starting to look less like research stations and more like something else entirely. The galaxy had classified humanity as a silent species. The galaxy expected them to know their place and stay quiet. The galaxy was about to learn that sometimes being quiet just means you are preparing to make a very loud noise. Nobody was watching the humans closely enough to see what was really happening, and by the time anyone started paying attention, it would be far too late to stop what was coming. The silence was about to end. Admiral Thexivore was having a boring day. He was in command of 3 Vraxi warships patrolling the border near the Kepler Nebula. It was routine work, the kind of job they gave to officers who needed something to do but were not important enough for real missions. The Vraxi hegemony was proud of its military. They had the biggest ships and the strongest weapons in the galaxy. Every species knew to respect Vraxi power. When Vraxi ships showed up, everyone else got out of the way. It had been like this for hundreds of years. Thexfor's ships were not even the big ones. His flagship was only half the size of a real battle cruiser. But it was still more than enough to handle anything they might meet out here in the middle of nowhere. That was when his sensors picked up the human ships. There were 5 of them, spread out across the nebula. They looked like converted cargo vessels, ugly boxy things with extra equipment stuck on wherever it would fit. Typical silent species ships built for carrying stuff, not for fighting. The humans were doing what they always did, scientific research. They had sensors pointed at every asteroid and gas cloud in the area. They were taking measurements and sending data back to their little research stations. Thexfor was not worried about the humans. Nobody was worried about humans. They were silent species. They were supposed to be harmless, but Thexfor was bored, and the humans were in Vraxi space without permission. Not technically illegal, since the Kepler Nebula was considered neutral territory, but it was disrespectful. Silent species were supposed to ask before doing anything in areas where real powers operated. Thexfor decided to teach the humans some manners. It would be good practice for his crew. and it would remind the galaxy that Vraxi ships went wherever they wanted. He ordered his 3 ships to move toward the human convoy. The Vraxi vessels were sleek and dangerous-looking, covered in weapon ports and armor plating. Next to them, the human ships looked like flying junk piles. When they were close enough, Thexvor opened a communication channel. Human vessels. This is Admiral Thexvor of the Vraxi Hegemony Third Border Fleet. You are operating in space under Vraxi protection. You will cease your activities and withdraw immediately. The response came back in accented but clear galactic standard. Vraxi vessels. This is Captain Martinez of the UECA survey ship Magellan. We are conducting lawful scientific research in neutral space under authority of the United Earth Colonial Authority. We have filed all proper notifications with Galactic Traffic Control. Thexvor's mandibles clicked in amusement. The human was technically correct about the legal status of the nebula. But legality was not the point. The point was showing respect to superior powers. Captain Martinez, you will comply with Vraxi instructions or face the consequences. This is your final warning. There was a pause. Then the human voice came back and it sounded different. Colder. Admiral Thexvor, let me be very clear. We are operating under lawful authority in neutral space. We are not threatening anyone or violating any treaties. If you want us to leave, you can file a complaint with the Galactic Commerce Authority. Otherwise, we suggest you withdraw your ships and allow us to continue our work. Thexvor could not believe what he was hearing. A silent species was refusing direct orders from Vraxi military forces. This had never happened before, ever. His tactical officer looked confused. Sir, what are your orders? Thexvor thought for a moment. He could just leave and file a report about uncooperative humans. But that would make him look weak. His crew would think their admiral backed down from cargo haulers. Target the lead human vessel. Fire a warning shot across their bow. When they see what our weapons can do, they will remember their place. The Vraxi ship fired a single plasma bolt that passed close enough to the human ship to light up their hull with energy discharge. It was a standard intimidation tactic that had worked on thousands of species. The humans did not surrender. They did not run away. They did not beg for mercy. They fired back. The first human weapon hit Thexvor's escort ship before anyone realized the humans were shooting. It was not an energy weapon like civilized species used. It was something that fired solid metal at impossible speeds. The projectile went through the Vraxi ship's shields like they were not even there, and punched a hole the size of a shuttle bay. Through the hull, the escort ship exploded 3 seconds later. Thexvor stared at his tactical display in shock. The humans had just destroyed a Vraxi warship with 1 shot. That was impossible. Silent species did not have weapons that could do that. All ships returned fire. Destroy the humans! But the human ships were already moving. They did not fly like cargo vessels anymore. They moved with precision and coordination that belonged on military ships. And they kept shooting. The second Vraxi ship died when 3 human projectiles hit it at the same time. The third ship lasted almost a full minute before a human weapon found its reactor core. Thexvor's flagship was alone now, facing 5 human ships that had just destroyed 2 Vraxi warships without taking any damage in return. Admiral, his communications officer said, the humans are hailing us. Put them through. Captain Martinez's voice was still calm. Admiral Thexvor, you have attacked lawful research vessels in neutral space. This is an act of war. However, we are prepared to accept your surrender and treat you according to galactic conventions. Surrender? Thexvor could barely speak. We are Vraxi. We do not surrender to silent species. Admiral, you are alone, outgunned, and your shields are failing. Your choice is surrender or death. We suggest surrender. Thexvor looked at his tactical display. The human ships had him surrounded. His weapons had not even scratched their hulls. His shields were indeed failing, but he was Vraxi. His people had conquered half the galaxy. They did not lose to converted cargo ships. Never. Vraxi fight to the death. He ordered his ship to ram the nearest human vessel. It was a desperate move, but it was better than surrendering to inferior species. The human ship moved aside easily and fired once. Thexvor's flagship broke apart, but the escape pods got away. The humans let them go. 6 hours later, Thexvor was sitting in a human detention facility, trying to understand what had happened. The humans treated their prisoners well, following all galactic conventions. They even provided Vraxi food and medical care. Captain Martinez came to see him personally. Admiral, we need to send a message to your government. What happened here was a misunderstanding that we hope can be resolved peacefully. HFY looked at the human through the transparent barrier of his cell. What are you? You were supposed to be silent species. You were supposed to run away. Martinez smiled, but it was not a happy expression. We were never silent, Admiral. We were just getting ready to speak. The message that reached Vraxi High Command 3 days later was simple. 3 border patrol ships had engaged human vessels in the Kepler Nebula. 2 ships were destroyed. 1 admiral was captured. The humans claimed they had acted in self-defense. Fleet Marshal Kextar read the report with growing anger. Humans had killed Vraxi warriors. Silent species had destroyed Vraxi ships. This could not be allowed to stand. The honor of the hegemony demanded response. The humans needed to learn what happened to species that attacked Vraxi forces. Kextar began assembling a war fleet. Not just patrol ships this time. Real warships with enough firepower to turn Earth into burning rock. The humans had made the biggest mistake in their short history. They had chosen war with the Vraxi hegemony. Kextar was going to teach them why that was always fatal. Fleet Marshal Kextar stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the final ships of his war fleet move into formation. 47 vessels, including some of the most powerful warships the Vraxi had ever built. It was enough firepower to destroy entire star systems. The fleet was the pride of the hegemony. The flagship alone was bigger than most space stations. The heavy battle cruisers could crack planets open. The siege platforms could reduce moons to asteroid fields. Against this much military might, no species had ever survived. Kextar had been planning this attack for 3 weeks, ever since the news of Admiral Thexavor's defeat reached Vraxi space. The High Command was furious that silent species had destroyed Vraxi ships. The honor of the hegemony demanded terrible revenge. Intelligence reports said that humans had maybe 12 ships total. All of them were converted civilian vessels with some weapons stuck on. Earth had no real military, no major shipyards, no defense systems worth mentioning. This would not be a battle. It would be an execution. The fleet jumped to hyperspace, heading for the Sol system. The journey would take 18 hours. When they arrived, Kextar would demand unconditional surrender. If the humans refused, he would destroy every human ship and space station in the system. Then he would bombard Earth until the humans begged for mercy. After that, the galaxy would remember why no one fought the Vraxi. The fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system, ready for war. Kextar expected to see a few human ships fleeing in panic toward their homeworld. Instead, his tactical officer started making confused noises. "Sir, I'm getting multiple contacts." "A lot of contacts." Kextar looked at his display and felt his confidence start to crack. The system was full of human ships. Hundreds of them. They were not fleeing toward Earth, they were moving to surround the Vraxi fleet. "That's impossible," he said. "Intelligence said they only had 12 ships." "Sir, I'm counting over 300 vessels. And there are fixed installations throughout the system. The asteroid belt appears to be inhabited." Kextar stared at his screens. The asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter was crawling with activity. What he had thought were normal space rocks turned out to be hidden bases, weapons platforms, and shipyards. Lots of shipyards. Jupiter's moons were not moons anymore. They were massive industrial complexes, bigger than anything the Vraxi had ever built. And rising from Earth itself came ships that made Kextar's flagship look small. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission." The main screen showed a human in military uniform. He was sitting in what was obviously the bridge of a warship. Behind him, Kextar could see crew members working at stations that looked far more advanced than anything on Vraxi ships. "Vraxi Fleet, this is Admiral Chen of the United Earth Defense Force. You have entered sovereign human space with hostile intent. You will withdraw immediately or we will be forced to defend our territory." Kextar found his voice. "I am Fleet Marshal Kextar of the Vraxi hegemony. You will surrender unconditionally and submit to Vraxi justice for your unprovoked attack on our ships." Admiral Chen's expression did not change. "Marshal, our ships acted in self-defense against an unprovoked attack in neutral space. We have your Admiral Thexfor in custody, and he has confirmed this. However, we are willing to discuss a peaceful resolution if you withdraw immediately. The Vraxi hegemony does not negotiate with silent species." Kextar snarled. "You will surrender or be destroyed." "We are not silent species," Chen said quietly. "We never were. All ships, battle stations. The human fleet began moving with coordination that took Kextar's breath away. This was not a collection of civilian ships with guns. This was a real military force with real training and real weapons, and there were so many of them. Sir, targeting sensors show human weapon signatures unlike anything in our database, his tactical officer reported. They appear to be kinetic weapons, but the power readings are impossible. All ships attack formation, Kextar ordered. Show them the power of the hegemony. The battle began with the Vraxi doing what they did best, charging forward with massive firepower. Plasma cannons and energy torpedoes lit up space as the warfleet opened fire on the nearest human ships. The humans shot back with weapons that broke every rule of space combat. Instead of energy beams, they fired solid projectiles at significant fractions of light speed. The projectiles went through Vraxi shields and armor like they were made of paper. The first Vraxi ship to die was a heavy cruiser that took 3 human rounds through its main reactor. The explosion lit up half the battlefield. Impossible, Kextar shouted. Our shields should stop any kinetic weapon. But they did not. Human weapons were not normal kinetic weapons. They were something new, something that the Vraxi had never seen before. And the humans had a lot of them. The battle turned into a nightmare for the Vraxi fleet. Their ships were tough and their weapons were powerful. But they could not hit targets that moved like the human vessels. The humans flew their ships like they were small fighters instead of capital ships. They changed direction and speed in ways that should have been impossible. Worse, every time a human ship fired, a Vraxi ship died. The humans did not miss, ever. Sir, we've lost 8 ships in the first 10 minutes, his tactical officer reported. The humans are not taking any significant damage. Kextar could see that for himself. Human shields seemed to absorb Vraxi energy weapons without any trouble. When Vraxi shots did get through, they hit armor that was thicker and stronger than anything the Vraxi had ever seen. The humans had not just built more ships than intelligence reported. They had built better ships. Deploy the siege platforms, Kextar ordered. Use the planet killers. The massive siege platforms moved forward, charging their main weapons. These were the weapons that had destroyed entire worlds, the ultimate expression of Vraxi military power. The humans responded by bringing up their own heavy ships from Earth orbit. Vessels so large they had their own gravity fields. Ships that made the Vraxi siege platforms look like patrol boats. When the siege platforms fired, the human ships absorbed the shots and kept coming. When the human ships fired back, the siege platforms simply ceased to exist. This is impossible, Kextar's tactical officer was nearly screaming. They're silent species. They're supposed to run away. But the humans were not running. They were advancing, methodically destroying the Vraxi fleet ship by ship. Their weapons never missed. Their shields never failed. Their tactics were perfect. The battle lasted 16 hours. At the end, only Kextar's flagship remained intact, and that was only because the humans had surrounded it instead of destroying it. Admiral Chen's voice came through the communication system again. Fleet Marshal Kextar, you are surrounded and outgunned. Surrender now and we will treat your crew according to galactic conventions. Kextar looked at his tactical display. 46 Vraxi ships were gone, destroyed so completely that there was nothing left but debris. Thousands of Vraxi warriors were dead. The greatest war fleet in hegemony history had been wiped out by a species that was supposed to be harmless. How? He whispered. How is this possible? Chen's face appeared on the main screen again. Marshal, we tried to tell your Admiral Thexvor the same thing we're telling you. We are not silent species. We never were. We were just preparing. Preparing for what? For this conversation, Chen said. The galaxy thought we were quiet because we were scared. We were quiet because we were building. Now we're ready to talk. Kextar looked around his bridge. His crew was staring at him, waiting for orders. But what orders could he give? His fleet was gone. His empire's military reputation was destroyed. The humans had weapons and ships that could defeat anything the Vraxi could build. I surrender, he said quietly. The war was over before the galaxy even knew it had started. The news traveled fast through galactic communication networks. The Vraxi hegemony's greatest war fleet had been completely destroyed by humans. Not defeated, destroyed. 46 ships gone, thousands of warriors dead, and their fleet marshal captured. Most species in the galaxy could not believe it at first. The Vraxi had the strongest military in known space. Their ships were the biggest and their weapons were the most powerful. How could silent species destroy them so completely? But the evidence was impossible to ignore. Vraxi emergency broadcasts were calling for help. Survivors were being rescued from life pods scattered across the Sol system, and intelligence reports were flooding in about human activities that no one had noticed before. Emperor Zexthul of the Zephyrian Empire called an emergency meeting of his council. For 3,000 years, the Zephyrians had been the galaxy's dominant power. They had survived by being careful, by watching threats before they became dangerous. Somehow they had completely missed the rise of humanity. How did this happen? The Emperor demanded. How did silent species build a fleet capable of destroying Vraxi forces? General Vexani, who had written the original report classifying humans as silent species, stood before the council with shame burning in her chest. Your Majesty, all our observations indicated typical silent species behavior. Small ships, research activities, no military buildup. Then explain the battle footage, the Emperor said coldly. The council chamber filled with holographic displays showing the destruction of the Vraxi fleet, human ships moving with impossible coordination, weapons that cut through Vraxi armor like it was not even there, industrial installations in the Sol system that rivaled anything the Zephyrians had built. They were hiding, General Vexani said quietly. Everything they built inside asteroid belts or behind planetary bodies. They made their industrial ships look like research vessels. They disguised weapons platforms as mining stations. We saw what they wanted us to see. Defense Minister Koltar studied the tactical data with growing concern. These human weapons use principles we do not understand. Their ships are built with materials our sensors cannot identify. Their industrial capacity appears to exceed anything in the galaxy. What do they want? The Emperor asked. That question was answered 3 days later when human fleets appeared in 7 Vraxi systems simultaneously. The fleets did not attack. They just sat there broadcasting the same message over and over. Admiral Chen's voice was calm and professional. To all Vraxi forces and installations, the hegemony has committed unprovoked acts of war against peaceful human research operations. In response, the United Earth Colonial Authority is claiming sovereignty over all star systems within our sphere of influence. Vraxi forces have 24 hours to withdraw from the following systems or face the consequences. The list of systems was shocking. The humans were claiming territory that included some of the richest mining worlds and most important trade routes in Vraxi space. It was not just revenge, it was a complete redistribution of galactic power. The Vraxi High Command sent desperate messages to their allies. Surely the Zephyrian Empire would not allow this precedent to stand. Surely the Keth Collective would help maintain the established order. Emperor Zexthul's response was carefully neutral. The Zephyrian Empire regrets the conflict between the Vraxi hegemony and humanity. We call for peaceful resolution through proper diplomatic channels. The Keth Collective offered to mediate the dispute, but they made it clear that they would not risk their own forces against a species that had just demonstrated the ability to destroy entire fleets. The smaller powers watched and waited. If the humans could defeat the Vraxi, then the old order was truly dead. New opportunities might be opening for species that had been kept down by the major powers for centuries. The Vraxi tried to rally what remained of their military, but most of their ships were spread across the galaxy, protecting distant colonies and trade routes. The few fleets they could assemble were no match for the human forces that appeared wherever they tried to make a stand. Human tactics were unlike anything the galaxy had seen before. They did not fight fair battles where both sides lined up and shot at each other. Instead, they appeared without warning, destroyed everything that resisted, and vanished before reinforcements could arrive. They fought like they had been planning these battles for years, because they had been. Intelligence reports started revealing the truth about human activities over the past 18 months. Those research stations had been manufacturing centers building ships and weapons in secret. The exploration vessels had been mapping strategic positions and identifying weak points in Vraxi defenses. The scientific surveys had been military reconnaissance. The humans had never been silent species. They had been studying the galaxy, learning its weaknesses and preparing for war. They had spent 18 months getting ready for exactly this moment. Within 2 weeks of the battle at Sol, the humans controlled 43 star systems that had previously belonged to the Vraxi. Hegemony forces that tried to resist were destroyed, so quickly that most surrendered without fighting. The speed of human expansion was terrifying. New fleets appeared faster than anyone could track them. Human industrial ships turned asteroid belts into shipyards in a matter of days. Colonies that should have taken years to establish were up and running in weeks. It was like the humans had compressed centuries of expansion into months of preparation. Dr. Kethmore of the collective spent sleepless days analyzing human technology. The more he learned, the more worried he became. Human ships used principles that the collective's best scientists could barely understand. Their weapons were generations ahead of anything else in the galaxy. Their industrial techniques were so efficient they seemed to break the laws of physics. How advanced are they really? His assistant asked. Dr. Kethmore stared at the data streams flowing across his screens. I don't think we're looking at normal technological development. This is like they skipped several stages of advancement. Either they're much older than they claim, or they're much smarter than we assumed. The political implications were just as frightening as the technological ones. Human expansion was not random. They were taking systems that controlled trade routes, mining operations, and strategic positions. Every world they claimed made their empire stronger and their enemies weaker. Worse, they were treating captured Vraxi territories well. Human administration was efficient and fair. Alien populations under human control reported better living conditions than they had experienced under Vraxi rule. Instead of being conquered subjects, they were becoming willing citizens. The humans were not just winning through military force. They were winning hearts and minds. Traditional galactic powers started reaching out to humanity through diplomatic channels. The Zephyrians offered trade agreements. The Keth Collective suggested technology exchanges. Smaller powers asked for protection against their stronger neighbors. All these offers received the same response from the humans. We appreciate your interest in peaceful relations. Please contact the United Earth Colonial Authority Diplomatic Service to discuss formal arrangements. The humans were acting like they belonged at the top table of galactic politics. More importantly, they were acting like they deserved to be there. Emperor Zexthul realized that the galaxy had changed forever. The old balance of power was gone. Humanity was not just another species trying to find its place in the cosmos. They were a major power that had appeared overnight and rewritten all the rules. What do we do now? His advisor asked. The Emperor looked at the strategic displays showing human fleets across dozens of star systems. We adapt. The galaxy has new rulers whether we like it or not. Our choice is to work with them or be swept aside like the Vraxi. In the depths of human space, construction continued on ships and installations that dwarfed even the fleets that had humbled the Vraxi. Admiral Chen stood on the bridge of humanity's newest flagship, watching reports flow in from across their expanding territory. The galaxy was learning that humanity's silence had never been weakness. It had been preparation, and now that they were ready to speak, everyone was going to listen. The age of human expansion had only just begun. 6 months after first contact, Ambassador Sarah Chen walked through the halls of the Galactic Council building on the neutral world of Nexus Prime. The building was ancient, older than most civilizations. Its walls had witnessed the rise and fall of countless species, the signing of treaties that shaped the galaxy, and the decisions that determined which worlds lived or died. Today, those walls would witness something new, a former silent species addressing the Council as an equal. Sarah's footsteps echoed in corridors that had been designed to intimidate. The ceiling was so high it disappeared into shadows. The walls were covered with symbols of the galaxy's greatest civilizations. Everything about the place was meant to remind visitors that they were small and unimportant compared to the powers that ruled the stars. Sarah was not intimidated. She represented humanity now, and humanity was no longer small or unimportant. The council chamber was packed. Representatives from hundreds of species had come to see the humans speak. Some were curious. Some were afraid. Some were angry. All of them were confused about how the galaxy had changed so quickly. The 3 major powers sat in their traditional places of honor. Emperor Zexthul of the Zephyrians looked ancient and tired. Prime Calculate Vexdon of the Keth Collective kept checking data streams on his personal displays. The Vraxi delegation was much smaller than usual. Most of their empire was now under human control. Sarah took her place at the speaker's podium. Behind her, holographic displays showed the current state of human space. 412 star systems, massive orbital installations, fleets that grew larger every day. industrial capacity that exceeded anything the galaxy had ever seen. The chamber fell silent as she began to speak. Honored representatives, I stand before you today not as a petitioner seeking recognition, but as the voice of humanity's place in the galactic community. She paused, letting her gaze sweep across the assembled delegates. Many of them had never seen a human before. To them, she was something impossible, a silent species that had refused to stay silent. For too long, this galaxy has operated under the assumption that power comes from age, from tradition, from accepting the way things have always been. Species were classified and categorized, told what their role would be, expected to know their place. The Vraxi delegate, General Mortak, rose from his seat. The humans speak of place while occupying worlds that belong to the hegemony. You have violated every principle of galactic law. Sarah turned to face him calmly. General, our forces acted in self-defense against unprovoked attacks. We offered peaceful resolution multiple times. Your government chose war. The consequences were predictable. You destroyed an entire fleet. We defended our territory and our people, just as the Vraxi have done for centuries when threatened. The difference is that we did it more effectively. Emperor Zexthul gestured for quiet. Ambassador Chen, the galaxy seeks to understand humanity's intentions. Your rapid expansion has caused concern among established powers. Your Majesty, our intentions are simple. We want the same things every civilization wants: security for our people, prosperity for our worlds, and the right to determine our own future. By taking worlds that belong to others? Prime Calculate Vexton interjected. Sarah smiled. Calculate, we took nothing that was not offered to us through Vraxi aggression. But let me address the larger concern. Humanity was classified as a silent species because we were expected to retreat to our homeworld and never bother anyone again. That classification was based on the assumption that we were weak, frightened, and unable to compete with established powers. She activated the holographic displays behind her. Images filled the chamber. Human shipyards that could build fleets in weeks instead of years. Industrial complexes that turned entire asteroids into raw materials. Colonies that grew from nothing to thriving worlds in months. The classification was wrong. We were never weak. We were never frightened. We were preparing. The displays showed more data: human population growth, industrial output, military capabilities. The numbers were staggering. In less than 2 years, humanity had built an infrastructure that rivaled civilizations thousands of years old. How is this possible? A delegate from the Centauri Republic asked. No species develops this quickly. We developed quickly because we had to, Sarah replied. When we discovered we were not alone in the universe, we realized we had two choices: accept whatever role the galaxy assigned to us, or prove that we deserved better. She gestured to the displays again. Every human shipyard, every colony, every ship in our fleet was built by people who refused to accept that being new to the galaxy meant being weak. We spent 18 months learning everything we could about galactic civilization. Then we built something better. The chamber erupted in argument. Representatives shouted questions and accusations. Some demanded explanations for human technology. Others wanted guarantees about human intentions. A few called for immediate action against human expansion. Sarah waited for the noise to die down before continuing. The galaxy expected humanity's silence. You expected us to know our place and stay there. Instead, you heard the roar of our ships, the thunder of our weapons, and the sound of change itself. She turned to address the major powers directly. Your Majesty, Prime Calculate, honored representatives, the old order is dead. The age when a few ancient civilizations could decide the fate of every other species is over. Humanity will not accept being classified, categorized, or dismissed. Emperor Zexthul leaned forward. What do you want from us, Ambassador? Recognition. Respect, a seat at this table as an equal partner in galactic civilization. And if we refuse? Sarah's expression remained pleasant, but something cold flickered in her eyes. Your Majesty, with respect, that is not really an option anymore. Humanity is not asking for permission to exist. We are informing the galaxy that we do exist, and that we intend to play by our own rules. The Vraxi delegate stood again. This is intolerable. The hegemony will never accept human occupation of our worlds. General, Sarah said quietly, the hegemony is welcome to try to retake those worlds. We will respond exactly as we did at Sol. The threat was subtle but unmistakable. Everyone in the chamber had seen the battle footage. Everyone knew what human weapons could do to even the strongest fleets. Prime Calculate Vexton was studying his data displays intently. Ambassador, our analysis suggests that human industrial capacity is still growing. How large do you intend your empire to become?
Calculate, we prefer the term sphere of influence, and it will become as large as necessary to ensure humanity's security and prosperity. That could mean the entire galaxy. Sarah smiled.
That could mean whatever it needs to mean. The chamber fell silent again. The implications were clear. Humanity was not just another power seeking its place in the existing order. They were a force that could potentially reshape the entire galaxy. Emperor Zexthul spoke carefully. The Zephyrian Empire is prepared to discuss formal diplomatic relations with humanity. As is the Keth Collective, Vexton added quickly. Other delegates began voicing similar offers. Trade agreements, defense treaties, technology exchanges. Everyone wanted to be on humanity's good side. Sarah nodded graciously. Humanity welcomes peaceful relations with all species. Our diplomatic service will be happy to discuss arrangements that benefit everyone involved. She paused, looking around the chamber one more time. But let me be very clear about one thing. The galaxy has heard humanity's roar. What comes next depends on whether you choose to listen to our words or wait for our weapons to speak again. As she left the podium, the chamber erupted in conversation. Representatives huddled in groups making urgent calls to their home governments. The galaxy's power structure was realigning itself around the new reality of human strength. In the depths of human space, construction continued on ships and installations that would make even today's fleets look small. Admiral Chen stood on the bridge of humanity's newest dreadnought, watching reports flow in from across their expanding territory. The galaxy had expected humanity's silence. Instead, it had gotten something much more dangerous. Humanity's voice, backed by the kind of power that could not be ignored. The cosmos had heard their roar. Now it was learning to listen to every word.